Good evening and welcome to Gaming Ballistic's Firing Squad. This evening we welcome Benjamin Loomes, who is from Syrinscape, which was designed to create background sound and music for in-person tabletop gaming. That being said, this is part of a continuing series of interviews for the March Role-Playing Game Blog Association Blog Carnival, whose topic is virtual tabletops, online gaming, and computer gaming aids, or computer-enhanced role-playing. So, Benjamin, thanks for joining us this evening.
A pleasure. Thank you for having me. It's fun. It's the middle of the day in sunny Sydney at the moment here.
And coming in on 10 o'clock p.m. here in Minnesota, where it fricking snowed again today. Come on, really? I mean, this is just uncalled for, even for Minnesota. Anyway, so just broadly, before we get deeply into Syrinscape, to talk a little bit about how you got into role playing. Clearly your interest in producing music stuff for the game comes from a love of the game. So, what got you into role playing, and what games do you currently play?
Yeah, cool. So in about 1980 or something, it must have been a bit later than that. When I was about 10. It was definitely later than that. I don't know dates back in the distant past. I was 10 years old on a camping holiday in Smiths Lake, which is up on the north coast of above Sydney, and my parents gave me the red box, the original red box with the little crayon, and you coloured in the numbers on the dice, and then you wiped it off, and you went on the little self-adventure with the cleric who you got friends with, and she healed you, and then she died, and all that sort of stuff. So I read that red box and just totally blew my mind, and it was really, just really fell in love with the whole fantasy genre, obviously. And I mean, I read lots of Lord of the Rings and all that sort of stuff when I was young. So I still am a total fantasy and sci-fi tragic. Whether it's Star Trek or Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, obviously, anything, just give it to me. And so I started playing when I was about 10, then played as a teenager. Not incredibly immersive role-playing when I was a teenager, lots of dice rolling and just collecting massive amounts of gold pieces off dragons and stuff, which was really cool. And then I probably took a bit of a break from role-playing while life took over and uni and all that sort of stuff, maybe from about 16 or 17. And then late 20s, I got back into it, just when 3.5 was coming out. Which is really great, and I really fell in love with that. And since then, we've built up my gaming group with a bunch of really creative people. I'm a composer and a classical singer and a musician, so I'm surrounded by actors and directors and writers. So we've got a fantastic gaming group, and now we play incredibly emotional and story-driven, epic sort of role-playing games, whether it be Star Wars or Pathfinder. We play lots of Pathfinder, Call of Cthulhu, all that sort of stuff, and it's amazing activity. That I love role playing because of that social aspect, sitting around the table, looking at each other, laughing, being very stupid, telling those big epic stories. Does that answer your question?
It does, and it's funny you mentioned. I had forgotten about the crayon because I have a similar role playing history to you. I started with Dungeons and Dragons. Actually, technically, it was probably Advanced Dungeons and Dragons because I played with a friend. Again, I was 1980, or 1981. I was 10.
Yeah.
And I asked for it for Christmas, and my parents, I think, got me the red box and the blue box, the basic and expert set. And I remember sitting down with my father the one time he ever played, and I was like, oh well, here's all the characters you can do, and you've got this, and he goes, I want to be an elf. And I didn't know that he had been a fairly voracious consumer of the Tolkien books. I think that they got thrown away, but I had a really, 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 really early edition Hobbit and Lord of the Rings paperback. Probably, one of the first couple with a very odd, sketchy cover. That was really interesting. And I had a whole...
When I read, I remember a bit of a brownie cover. It was very cool.
Yes, exactly. So I played and whatever, but it sounds like that you've got an interesting game going, and then I also have heard of this thing called the Dice Stormers, to sort of bring role-playing games to anyone who wants to watch. Tell me a little bit about Dice Stormers.
Yeah, so about 18 months ago, our gaming group were all pretty much show-offs and stagey people, or whether we're salesmen or composers or directors, whatever, we just grabbed a couple of cameras for a lark and filmed our games. And we filmed, I think the first one we filmed was a Star Wars game, D6, and put it up on YouTube, and it just got heaps of views. And then straight away people started commenting and demanding more content. And we've just, basically whenever we play now, we stick the cameras up. We've got more and more cool stuff. We now have 4 cameras generally and a really good quality audio recorder. And we edit the games after. I have a fantastic setup at home where I have a projector that projects normal theater projector, but then we stick a mirror up on the roof and it bounces the maps down onto the table. And we've now got 3D maps because we've got these little white blocks that I build up on the table, so it actually, projects the color over the top of this 3D terrain.
Oh wow!
And yeah, so we've been videoing, and it's just gone bananas. So many people watch it. We're in about 10 times as many people watch as minutes go past. So for every minute that goes past in this interview, 10 people are watching a minute's worth of video. And we're getting about 30,000 views a month now. And it's just, what's fantastic about the gaming community is that real connectedness right across the world. People are always commenting on our videos, encouraging us, picking up rule violations and asking for more stuff. And it's just, this incredible community is growing around us. But yeah, Dice Stormers. So Dice Stormers, all one word, and you just search on YouTube and you can't miss us. We're actually coming up really high. If you search for Pathfinder RPG, I think we're like the second hit from the top or something. So, and yeah, as you said, it's like a kind of a, we almost feel like we're modeling one of the ways you can role play, quite cinematic, quite epic, really storytelling focused. Lots of dice because we love that stuff, but lots of stuff ups and lots of big successes, epic fails, and I feel like a lot of people, a lot of young players are looking at us and saying, "Wow, I'm really learning from you," which is really cool and quite humbling. As well, but I reckon it's such an amazing hobby. Anything we can do to make it, stronger and better is good for us.
No, I agree, and it's not just good for it's good for the hobby, and the more people who play, the more immersive and popular is the wrong word, but the more people who play, the easier it's going to be to have the market base to have innovation within it. Right? Because if you have people, if there's enough market out there where someone can try something and do well enough to encourage them to try again, you can get enough failures to get the real successes out there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Right. You got to try stuff, right? I mean, very few people are going to walk into the first game mastering experience, sometimes even their first role-playing experience, and just be like, yes, I'm a natural game master, and everything I do is soaked in awesome all the time. Right, I mean, you have to have the epic fail out there as a game master, where you've got 6 people looking at you like this.
Yeah.
Right, and like, what just happened? Do you really want us to do that? No, I don't.
And we get those on our channel. People get to see us making actual, genuine mistakes. There's a classic moment in one of our games recently where we actually played 4 games in a row on the International Tabletop Role-Playing Game Day thing, and I was GMing at like 12:30 in the middle of the night, and I had this Remirez miniature, and like I was like, and you come over the hill, and there's a Remirez there, and then it attacks you, and I'm like, oh, that wasn't very, maybe it wasn't there. Can I take it back off the table? And like everyone's just laughing at me. It was like the worst setup for a non-dramatic battle you could possibly have wanted. So yes, so people get to see us play, warts and all, which is really cool as well.
Right. So tell me a little bit about. So you've got your projector, and you flash it up, and you've got this really cool setup, and that's neat for a face-to-face game. But to what extent do you use computer aids to enhance your tabletop experience? Obviously, you're broadcasting over the internet, so there's something that's going on there with computers, even if it's just as a proxy for a pair of eyeballs or, frankly, an audience. But what else do you think is good? What do you think that's going to be core to the future gaming experience, or do you think it's just kind of temporary?
I think, apart from Syrinscape, obviously, which we'll talk about in a minute with the whole audio thing, which is totally computer-based, for me, sitting at the table the ability to search rules, and well, let's go back a step. Actually, in preparation, I'm using the computer a lot, so I can bring up an individual description of a monster which maybe has been modded or had a template applied to it, and then I can just sort of print out individual sheets of all my encounters all ready to go from the computer. I can bring up a rule clarification really, really fast, and that's a big difference. One of the things that Filming Our Games for the public has done is means we don't want those dead spots, those sort of flat spots. Hang on, I'll just look through the book for a while and try and find the rule. No one's going to want to watch that. So the ability to to do text searches on games is really, really fantastic, and that's totally computer based, internet based. And then just the sharing of ideas across a social media community helps us. So people are pushing for what they think might be cool, or they're suggesting things, and it's actually our gaming group has become a worldwide sort of interaction with everyone out there contributing in their own way, which is really, really cool. And that's all totally dependent on computers as well.
More broadly, what do you think that means for the role-playing game industry, the content creators, the marketing, or dice manufacturers? I don't know, whatever. But as far as an industry, you've got the game guys. But do you think that there's a lot of room for a healthy cloud, to use an overused word, of peripheral support pieces in as part of the gaming industry?
Yeah, I mean, from the very top for a start, it was Paizo who really got into the whole beta test online, actually directly starting a conversation with users, and rather than delivering what the user was supposed to like and would be the next thing for them to take up, Paizo really asked the users and had an extended beta test on that Pathfinder game, and really managed to develop a community around themselves. And they've basically continued to do that every time they release a book. They're not just doing a pretend beta test, but some kind of it certainly appears genuine, and the ideas of the users and the community get incorporated into their new books. And then going on to your actual question, the third, with the PDF, you can now publish a book or gaming content incredibly cheaply. I've bought and paid for cards printed out of all the different monsters you can summon, which is fantastic, because I basically didn't used to summon things because it's just a pain in the butt, especially if you're playing a celestial template or an augmented template or whatever. And now I can support a tiny little publisher who's taken the time to go through and set all that out correctly using the OGL. And I can give them money for the work they've done. And then you've got publishers publishing physical gaming aids like spell cards, or Perim and his spell cards, which were fantastic, which I used for a long time. Plus you've got apps. I mean, most of my guys now, whenever they're casters, they've got a little app on their phone that brings up all the spell details. And it's sort of there's a whole big set of companies that now can survive, from the very top ones who are using all those online things to smaller and smaller companies who are able to either just do it on a hobby basis and yet support all the costs they've got. And I think that's really, really, really exciting, and it's just giving us more great stuff to play with.
It does seem a little bit that one of the keys to that is some kind of, whether it's open gaming or a system resource dictionary, or some amount of content that is out there for anybody to use, reuse, repackage, and make some money off of in a unique way, without sort of bringing the holy wrath of Paizo or Wizards of the Coast or someone down on them.
And that was the genius of the D20 system, which is, and that whole open gaming license, which has just happened to be when I came back to gaming, and I think that's sort of lucky for me and wonderful. And that's what Paizo obviously forced into the situation where they had to then develop a game within that system. And I mean, there's obviously a big crossover between the people who had the concept of the OGL originally, and then those people who were in Paizo when they lost the magazines and all that sort of stuff. So it's sort of a logical continuum for them, and a gaming industry philosophy for them. But I think it really is the way of the future, and it'll be really interesting to see what happens with D&D next. I mean, obviously they've tried to do beta testing and public trials of their rules and everything, and then they've got some big decisions, obviously, what they do then release-wise. And so that'll be really interesting to watch, and how they're going to sort of structure their business.
Yeah, I was impressed. You know, I've obviously been playtest leader for a couple of GURPS books, and those playtests are like, so my book was, I think, 12 people. Tactical shooting was, 12 or 15. High tech was maybe a few more. And I've been participating in other Steve Jackson Games playtests where you've got about a dozen, maybe 24 in some of the past playtests, but not really. And I guess the D&D Next or 5th edition, or just Dungeons and Dragons, I guess is what they're just going to call it. It was like 250,000 people or something like that. I'd be very interested to hear their impressions afterwards of the signal to noise ratio of a playtest that was that large.
Yeah. I mean, this we say on our website that Syrinscape is developed as a part of a community, and it really has been. I mean, the only reason it exists is because people demanded it and demonstrated, a desire for it to go from the next level, from the little thing that it was that I had, this sort of homebrew kind of thing, and actually, the market created its own market research and its own clear stats about how many people were probably interested in using it. And that helped me to get the funding and the financial backing to then develop Syrinscape to the next level. So it's it really is a user sort of demanded system, and because people are so engaged in this community, they'll criticize or complain or write or encourage, especially encourage. I mean, I have found 95% of incredibly positive, encouraging, thankful, gracious comments. Just every single day I'm waking up, to more people thanking me for making Syrinscape and doing, what it does and what I'm adding to people's tables. And so that's really encouraging and basically, motivates.
Right.
You go.
No, I was going to say it's a perfect segue. So what is Syrinscape? What does it do? And why did you write it?
That's right. So as I said earlier, I'm a musician and composer, and I love your computer games with their big thundering scores and all their roars and sounds like that. And we all know that if you go to a movie and you turn off the sound, or you put then the mood all drains out of movies. Or in fact, I've seen things where you can put different soundtracks behind the same footage, and you can completely change the interpretation. If someone's just cutting up carrots in the kitchen and there's nice happy music, then you think, oh, it's nice happy carrot cutting music. Or if you put like a spooky sounds behind it, the imagination immediately paints this monster creeping up behind them who's going to stab them or eat their ankles or something like that. So I was playing these tabletop role-playing games sitting at the table, and there's no soundtrack at all, obviously. And lots of people have done what I did, which was to start to use computer game soundtracks that I was stealing, ripping off the games I own, or using movie soundtracks. And they're pretty good, but a lot of these soundtracks have really strong associations with particular plot points. And I was finding the wrong music coming at the wrong time, or it was evoking, you really can't put on Lord of the Rings soundtrack without, being there in Hobbiton with the actual hobbits and, are we Aragorn or are we something else? Movie soundtracks are quite, written specifically, and they have particular rises and falls. So that was working reasonably well. And then so what I started doing is making, say, 10-minute audio tracks, which actually a lot of people are doing on Kickstarter now, where you've got 10 minutes of environmental noise, sort of going on with a sort of a wind loop behind it, and then maybe a bit of a music track. But we found really, really quickly, because you might spend, say, an hour in a particular environment, discussing the way you're going to skin the goblin that you just killed or whatever, you start to notice patterns really, really quickly. And I was actually surprised, actually. But if you get sort of like, caw, 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 once you've heard that 5 times in a row, you start to notice it, and it starts to pull away from the table. And the problem is that's what we're designed to do. Human beings are designed to notice patterns. That's really important for our survival, and we're really, really good at it. And so, so I sort of extended the passages. I was mixing them down on a sequence, a Cubase. So I made them 20 minutes, but then that becomes a lot of work, and then, you still notice the patterns pretty much. So I started looking around for something that would do generative sound playback of samples, and there were a few products. There was some pretty good ones that have been written in the past, but a lot of them were abandoned, or they weren't flexible enough, or the sound design was pretty dodgy. A lot of them were really too dense, you know. So you sort of put in a wolf, and it pretty much goes woof, woof, woof. You know, you're like, stop. So I not being able to find anything else, I actually learned to program. I've done a bit of programming in the past, so I found a programming language that seemed appropriate. I found Python, and I programmed sort of my own dodgy home version of something that would do what it did. And of course, because this is an online world and we live in a community, I just shared it because you do that, and the reaction was just amazing and so strong, and yeah, people really liked it. I haven't really explained how it works. So yeah, so the reason why Syrinscape works well is because what it does is it has a whole lot of take an element, okay? In fact, should I show you this on the actual interface?
Sure, go ahead.
Do this.
Go ahead, yeah.
This is Syrinscape. This is in a bar fight. Now I'm gonna have to turn the volume up here so you can hopefully hear it. A lot of the way this works is that things are subtle. I'll use this one.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, cool. So what it will do is this element, this smashing glass element, will just play a sound every now and then. It picks up, I've got a whole lot of samples in there, various different smashes. You need kind of about 10 or 20. And each time it plays back, it'll actually pick up one of those sounds. Once this little slider comes around, it's actually waiting a randomized amount of time. It'll actually pick up one of those sounds, put it out in the 3D spectrum in surround sound, which is very cool, at a randomized distance that I can set up. And it will play that sound, and that little element will just sit there playing, and then you could sit on, you know, I could turn on grunts and shouts as well, and it will just sit there playing. And all these elements add up eventually to what you would have in a movie as sound design. You know, you'll have if there's a bar fight going on, you might have someone whimpering under a table. You might have the sound of people chatting, and so that's all the elements of the sound design. They're all completely dynamic, all completely randomized. You'll never hear the same sound twice, and it will just keep going and going and going. Now you don't want to have to turn all that on and set all those. So over here on the second column are presets. So it's on for young and old. We'll set up this mixer. You can see all those sliders moving in a certain state. The music will start, and it'll just play the fantastic sound of a bar fight in the background until you are satisfied. Then on the right-hand side here, you've got one-shot sounds, which are sounds you can actually set off like on a soundboard, like this sound, which are all punches sounds, or this one, which I really like, of course. The Wilhelm scream, which every game absolutely needs.
Absolutely.
I've got a whole lot of spells here. But the main point of Syrinscape is that, say you're in the Witchwood, you just click that, and that's it. That's all the clicking I have to do. Syrinscape will just slowly transition through, and everyone can try this. It's free to download, and you can play with the two top sound sets, and it'll just sit there playing every now and then a distant roar or a growl or whatever, and it won't sort of fill up the whole room with lots and lots of sounds, but will actually just be really subtle. And then say we're about to have a bugbear battle, so we go over the bugbear battle sound set, and we just click that, and then suddenly we're in a battle. And the music will play. There we are. It's a bit louder. And it'll just sit there as well. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to touch it, because I really don't want to take any attention away from the game and from the players. You know, say you're in a spaceship. We are also bringing out. Oh yeah, that's cool. I don't know how that's coming through the speakers, but it sounds pretty cool in here.
Sounds vaguely Star Warsy.
And then we've got gatherings. You can have thunderstorms, all sorts of stuff like that.
Huh.
Does that make sense?
It does. It does. So it's something where you'll do a couple of presets or pick some presets that someone has done for you and create some background ambiance to help set the mood.
That's right. Basically, it just runs in the background. It's just basically putting on that movie soundtrack. You know, the sound of you know, the music that you get, which plays every now and then, and also all the background wind, which is kind of a continuous sort of bed of sound, and then also those individual events that occur every now and then, like, you know, distant roars or wolf howls or crash of thunder or, you know, goblins in the distance smashing stuff up, you know, whatever you need. So that's it. That's Syrinscape. It's available on PC and Mac and Android tabs and iPads as well, so people can sort of try it out on all those devices.
No, that's pretty cool. I was wondering, so in terms of the overall theme of what we're talking about this month, do you see a web-based or a client-based version of this in the future?
So yes, it's we built it in the Unity engine, so it's it can work in a whole lot of different contexts. There is a web browser version, and we've had a lot of people recently telling us we should be integrating it with the online gaming systems, because there's some solutions. So Roll20, for instance, you can play tracks off SoundCloud and stuff like that.
Right.
This and they've sort of got a free player kind of thing with integration of premium content and stuff in their business model, and this is the same sort of thing. You download the player for free. It comes with enough to run within a few games, and then if you want to buy more stuff on top of that, you can do that. So integration, I think, into one of these devices makes a lot of sense, I think, in the future. At the moment, it was built. I mean, I'm totally a tabletop gamer, so at the moment it's built, primarily for my tabletop game, but it makes absolute sense online as well. And some people have been using it, of course, as well. You can have it on a tablet and you can feed it through a mixer, so that's going through to your players if you need to.
Sure. No, it just seems like it would be almost a perfect. We're talking in Google Hangouts on air, and Roll20 integrates directly with Google Hangouts. It seems like this would be a fairly straightforward inclusion into a Hangout environment.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely, yeah. And that's something we just need to get onto. So what we're working on at the moment with Syrinscape, we've got the fantasy player, all that content's all set up and being built and everything, and then at the moment we're concentrating on getting our sci-fi player out, which has some of those sounds you heard there that I played. And then we're looking at getting the editor, because my version of Syrinscape originally was everyone could build their own stuff. So that's really, really important that we get the community involved in building their own stuff again in this version. And that's hopefully we've got a beta of that in April, which is very, very exciting. And then once again, we can get that whole community. Everyone can be building what they want. Everyone can be contributing and making it grow as a community.
So are you going to publish a set of like Syrinscape standards? Your noise level has to be this. You need to have this clean or whatever. I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, how you can make sure that the sound quality, because for example, you're talking about. Let me finish that sentence. Actually, I have a tendency to go from one thought to another, which makes the transcriptions really odd. So you've got. You want to make sure that the content that is being community provided is at least of a certain standard of quality, because otherwise, fair or not, Syrinscape gets the knock for not providing an immersive environment because somebody is doing something with sound effects and flushes the toilet in the background or something. Do you envision some sort of standard set?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think what we'll do is we'll green light. I think the current concept is, and this is open to discussion still and argument amongst us, is that we'll probably do so you can build anything you want, and then that automatically synchronizes with your server home online, and that means you can have it on all your devices when you log in as you. And then probably what we'll do is have people to be able to propose the addition of what they've built to the community, and then I think we'd have people vetting them, because we also have copyright concerns as well. We need to just go around and make sure that so people can use community commons sounds as long as they credit them correctly if it's an attribution license, and that's so great to be able to pass on that credit. And so as long as all the sounds are correctly credited, as you say, if the quality is good enough so that's actually table rather than running the game, then I reckon a sound set would go from being a candidate for being public to being public, and then I think that's really important, definitely.
Yeah, because otherwise, I could see where, hey, doesn't that sound an awfully lot like the Avengers soundtrack? Yes, yes, it does. Yes, that's going to be a problem. And the safeguarding of IP in a digitally distributed world is difficult, especially. Most people, or let me try that again, some people don't get too exercised when a $50 billion corporation has a song go public. It's a different story when having that song go public is one of 15 songs in an artist's repertoire, and it's I've downloaded this great song. Well, congratulations. That person is now eating twice a day instead of 3 times a day.
Absolutely.
As a writer of a book that has maybe sold 300 or 400 copies, having a couple free downloads here, even at a couple bucks a pop for that would go to me is relatively speaking, is a big deal. Now, GURPS Technical Grappling will never have me quitting my day job, but for those who might wish to make a career out of the gaming industry, although I think many gaming industry professionals would just give a word of advice, which is don't. It's like joint ventures, just don't. Oh, you still want to? Don't. Oh, you still want to? It's like converting to Judaism. You have to be convinced 3 times. But once you get into that, you want to make sure that yes, you want to make sure people are enjoying your product, but you also want to make sure that the artists are getting compensated both intellectually and monetarily for the work that they put in.
Yeah. That's right, absolutely. And the thing is, the community on the whole is really, really keen to support, innovation and things that are going to make the game better, and they want to have a mechanism to be able to do it. And I mean, that's what Kickstarters have shown, if nothing else, that people, once there's an idea that captures the imagination, this community is really, really keen to put their money behind it, which is really, really great. So I think probably what we're going to do is build a subscription model where people can basically become a supporter, and they just get access to absolutely everything that they can possibly get access to, and we get to have a sort of a steady stream and know how big our base is, and then sort of adjust our business model on the basis of that, which I think makes a lot of sense. And people are asking for that. People don't want to have to go to a shop and buy all the different bits and all that sort of stuff. They just want to be able to go, yep, I believe in that product. I want to make sure it still exists. We can all keep using it.
Right. No, I see where that would go, and it's somewhere between Kickstarter and what's the Patreon is the other one, where you're just basically funneling money. It's like buying a subscription to a content creator. And it's instead of saying I'm going to buy Pyramid Magazine, and Pyramid Magazine, I'll buy that issue or this issue or that issue, or the old Dungeon Magazine or Dragon or whatever, you basically say I'm going to throw $10 a month to Bob the game designer. And if enough people do that, then he's got a secure living, doing good content, and if that content starts to be not good, the subscriptions go away, and it's a very active sort of, capitalism, yay. If you're an Austin Powers fan, we won! Yay, yeah, hey, comrade! Sorry. I need to rewatch that movie. The first time I ever saw that, I nearly busted a gut. I was a huge Ian Fleming James Bond fan. And he did such a great job of doing an homage to both the books and the movies. That it was just the first one was just wonderful to watch from that perspective. Anyway, I digress. See, I told you I digress. So you've mentioned Paizo a little bit. You've got some great fantasy bar fight stuff going on. So I hear there's something in the works, and I hear that because you sent me an email saying something's in the works. So why don't you tell me about that?
Yeah, so I'm really a strong believer in the Paizo kind of model and that kind of sort of community base and the whole OGL concept and everything like that. So I've really loved what's been done with Pathfinder, and I love the game world and love the quality of their art. So some sort of licensing relationship with companies has always been fairly obvious for Syrinscape, and the big one for us was Pathfinder and Paizo because we feel a real connection with their business model and with their philosophies. So we just approached them and said, look, we've got this fantastic product. We think people need to have it on the table, and we'd really love to be able to build content for your game and directly support Galarian and or in fact just directly support all the monsters that are in the OGL, which is all the Dungeons and Dragons come Pathfinder monsters. And they liked the product. I mean, any digital product that actually turns up and it's done is a bit of a massive achievement in this industry. There's been many attempts to produce digital products, some of which have never emerged. We entered I basically went to PaizoCon and asked for a meeting. Give me 10 minutes, 15 minutes of your time, and we sat down with those guys and just basically spooked the product and said, look at this, and they were like, oh, that's so cool. And they were pushing the buttons and making the roars and And yeah, we basically then entered a conversation with them and have agreed to build licensed content for Paizo, and that's all official and signed up. So the last couple of months have been building a whole lot of content, which I can't mention what it is. But it's once we're ready for release, we're just doing the final polishing on all that stuff, and then it will start rolling out. And it'll be, as we said, a subscription basis, so you'll be able to get sort of a ever widening support for every sort of tabletop experience you want to get going.
But I could easily see, and you can just smile mysteriously because I know you're probably under non-disclosure, but I could easily see areas of Golarion each having their own theme song. I could see starting with the most popular monsters, whether it's a beholder or a remoraz or a dragon or a troll or goblins. Each of those guys have sort of a theme song, certain noises. The goblins getting angsty or getting angry would have a certain background noise. You could have a troll thump thump thump. So you could really easily see where something like you'd load in, like I just did an interview with the gentleman from Fantasy Grounds, Doug Davison. You could see, for example, automatically when you load in these monsters, a bear, 3 dire bats, and a troll, that it brings in the bear, the dire bats, and the troll sounds and starts playing some background music.
That's right, absolutely. Yeah, integration with some of these products is really good, and the Syrinscape is running as an API at the moment. And we're just building the native sort of interfaces. So really, the skin that you saw before is just a surface controller, and there's no reason that any other program or web device or whatever can't control that API. So yeah, absolutely, that's something certainly that there's been a few chats with a few people about that sort of stuff, and once we find the right match, and then I think that's definitely something that should happen for sure. Yeah. And it's really easy to do as well because the elements are there. You just need any device that turns on, as you said, the element that's the goblin noises, and any sort of player interaction with clicks or automated attached to an icon that you put down on the table automatically starts it. That's all straightforward programming wise.
Another fun thing that would leverage the power of automatic searching as well as some of the speech-to-text capabilities that are found on iPhones iPhones or whatever would be something where you're actually at a tabletop or online and it's listening to what you're saying, and you say yes, and there are 3 trolls, and it hears the word trolls and it goes out to a database and comes back with crunching sounds or grog must squash into jelly or something. So you can sort of see where
it's these sort of stupid ideas that people just think, oh, well, it wouldn't really work because text-to-speech isn't really good enough, and it'd probably go wrong, and it'd play the wrong thing at the wrong time. And then someone actually makes it happen, and it works. And everyone's like, oh, way cool. Why didn't I think of that? Well, lots of people thought of it, but there was only one idiot who went and did it. So, yeah.
Right. So with that in mind, let me ask a question is, for your tabletop enhancement environment, so what are you satisfied with that exists to enhance your tabletop experience? And it can be Syrinscape, it can be anything, but just as someone who is creating content to make a better tabletop experience, and by extension, eventually a better online experience, what's good that you like that's out there already? What needs to be out there to enhance experience, and how do you see that evolving over time?
So I think I'm satisfied audio-wise because I've basically built exactly what I wanted. I really want, Syrinscape to be a community thing so that lots of people can build their own stuff and that we can all share it and then we all get lots of really great content rather than it relying just on the one central team building all the stuff. Though as long as you control the quality, then that's going to work really, really well. What is still lacking for me at my table is a really useful, easy way to control the maps at the table. A lot of the mapping programs are focused for online play, which is cool. But if people go and check out the Dice Stormers on YouTube, you'll see what we're doing at the moment with maps. And I've actually been using PowerPoint to do my maps, to control the position and the scale, to apply grids and unapply grids, and then to be able to show and hide various different areas in an effective way. Now, I was using Map Tool, which is just amazingly, fantastically powerful, and being able to move your digital miniatures around so that it automatically does lighting and all that sort of stuff. That's really cool. But when you're using physical miniatures, that doesn't really work very well because you've got to kind of move the digital miniature to match the physical miniature. And also it takes a really long time to do all the walls and everything in a program like MapTool. So there's a lot of prep time. So whether there's a better way of sharing those maps once they're built. And then I'm just getting excited now. So also, when I'm taking a map from a digital product that I own, so say a module, and then wanting to import it into a program, any program to project it, the resolution is always a real problem. I've absolutely loved what Paizo have done recently, where you can actually turn off the room numbers and hide the secret doors, so you have a player version of the map, which I can easily project on the table. But the resolution is nowhere near what it needs to be. It's just because they published a PDF that does, and they want to keep the PDF size down, so like higher resolution. But the really, really big thing for me, what I haven't been able to find online at all, is animated elements to put on my maps. I would love to be able to place down easily on my digital map on my table a fire element and just draw an area and then have it sort of burning. That would be so cool. And also a flowing river, just to designate, just to get a big pen and just draw right across the map and have it automatically flow would really be fantastic. Or to be able to have it snowing on my map on my table. And I'm sort of doing things like that at the moment, just cobbling together things. But I'd love that to be there in the future. So I'll get fed up.
I was taking a look at the Battlegrounds demo. And it has some of that. It has some dynamic lighting where you have a fire and it flickers, and you actually see the flickering light in two zones, the bright zone and the dim zone. I'm fairly sure it's got a robust dynamic lighting module to it. It seems to be a little bit ahead of some of the other dynamic lighting introductions. I do know that the Roll20, I'm not experienced with it yet, but I think as part of their rugged reroll upgrade, they've done some neat things with dynamic lighting.
They've been talking about animated icons for a while, and well, I don't know, the last time I looked was maybe a month ago, and everyone was saying, well, yes, we don't do it yet, and it's difficult for this reason, and I totally understand that. I mean, it can take a lot. Sometimes when you have to re-engineer the whole way your graphics system works in order to incorporate something like an animated GIF or whatever, it can be really major. But I just want one of these people to do it, and as soon as they do, they're going to go off. Because if I can just chuck down fire and it burns, my players are going to salivate all over the table.
Right. No, and the other thing that would be kind of neat, just thinking out loud, is I don't know if they have these all over the place in malls, and they have one at our Minnesota Zoo. It's a projector that not just projects but senses. So if you go like this across the projector screen, it interacts with the images. So it would be interesting to have that such that either you're doing it on the surface, or like if you put an actual miniature on there, it can sense that it's, there's a barcode on it or something, and it knows which miniature it is, and if you move it, it moves the map or scales the map. Or you could actually have an interactive system where you're moving your miniatures on the table, the projector receiver is finding out where they are, giving it back to a GM screen, so you can have hidden things, and you can say, oh, put a river here, and you actually draw on the computer screen, touch screen, and it shows up.
That's right, and I've seen the Microsoft Table Surface thing did that really well, didn't it? And but that they're like $20,000 or something. But I want that to take an icon or a miniature with a barcode and just draw on the table and say, well, that's a shadowed area or whatever, and that'd be so cool.
But it seems that the capability to not drive it with, you'd need that special projector, or maybe you wouldn't need a projector. You would need a webcam. You would need the projector. And you would need a tablet that you could receive it to, or you probably want a full computer with a touch screen, like some of the new Dells and stuff that are actually, I think, what was it? There's a 27-inch touch screen, the Dell XPS or whatever. And you can do all that. You interact with it, but viscerally, and have that experience. So I think we're coming down to the end, if nothing else, because of the conference call that I have in the morning. So unfortunately, I can't just keep chatting, although you're really fun to talk to. But I always give my guests the last word. So I'm giving you the last word. What do you want to leave anyone who's going to be watching this about Syrinscape, or the future, or the community, or what do you want to let them know?
Yeah, look, just get involved in the community. Making your voice heard is what drives this stuff, I think. And if any of the stuff we've been talking about catches your imagination, we'll make it happen by talking about it and workshopping these ideas online. Because, you know, so go and download Syrinscape. It's for free. You can try it out, and then just basically jump on Facebook or on Twitter and just hammer me until you get it looking the way you want it to, and we can enter a discussion and we can argue about things. Yeah, definitely check out the Dice Stormers. People are always saying you guys should be known more because you're heaps funny and embarrassing. So just go Dice Stormers on YouTube and search that out, and then make comments and pick up all our rule errors and make jokes about us. And we had someone make a special cut of one of our Dice Stormers videos the other day because Murray's character was chopping the ears off things and giggling in a slightly maniacal way, and so they just made this video of just that one slightly scary moment, and we totally love that stuff. And I think community, and most of all, just game. All right, get out there and game more because it's good stuff and it's fun. That's me.
Fair enough. All right, I want to thank you for your time, and this. Just so you know, we'll be transcribing this, and it'll show up in a couple of days. I want it to come out before the end of March, so that it's in time for the Blog Carnival. And everyone who's watching, get out there and write posts about this stuff because it's part of the whole community piece. And the more people talk, and the more they're shared, and all the different videos. And you yourself should stop by the Firing Squad if you haven't already, and see all the different, because like some of the features that you've just talked to, like John Lammers talked about some of the things Epic Table can do, and Doug Davison walked me through Fantasy Grounds. And actually, if you're really into immersive, deep epic storytelling, Liz Tice walked me through Realmworks, which is by the same company, Lone Wolf Development, that did Hero Lab. Realmworks is this huge scripting, story-driven, mind map, relationship web. You can do mapping. You've got all this stuff. You can click on it to share with players. It's really neat. And for people who do big stories, it's actually a technology. And I said this in my post about it. I expected to be unimpressed, it totally impressed me. It was something I'm like, when I do my campaigns, I want to do it in this so it's there and it's easy and you don't have to do your prep twice. So it was really kind of neat. This is Syrinscape is another capability that you've developed to add to the immersion experience for either people at a table and hopefully eventually online as well.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you for your time.